good morning, and welcome to another live edition of Wealth Building Wednesday, brought to you by TRHT Selma. TRHT Selma is a collaboration between two nonprofit organizations based right here in the historic city of Selma, the Selma Center for Nonviolence and the Black Belt Community Foundation. Those organizations, or we, come together to produce TRHT Selma. TRHT Selma is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And as a part of what TRHT Selma does with promoting truth, racial healing, and transformation in and around our community, we produce this weekly broadcast called Wealth Building Wednesday. Why wealth? Because there's a tremendous wealth gap. Our country is living while some of us are living check to check or don't even have a check, there are others, 1% of our population, that hold the majority of the wealth, over 75% of the wealth. So we want to spread that wealth around, not in a socialist style, but helping people put on those boots, pull up the bootstraps, learn the facts so that we can make rational and righteous decisions as we grow our generational wealth. So welcome and good morning. Good morning to Tiffany Smith and all of those who are logged in. Y'all tell a friend to tell a friend. We're going to have a great time because I am super excited to have this beautiful lady who happens to be my soror. She is an outstanding person, all around beautiful on the outside and the inside. Miss Helene Felton is with us. She is a local realtor who is not representing her company, but giving us advice. Listen, expert advice. Miss Felton, how long have you been in the industry?
Well, first, thank you, my sweet Sora Lydia, and good morning to all of you that are viewing and listening. My name again is Helene Felton, and I have been doing this for 14 and a half years. July will be 15 years.
Yes. Well, congratulations on such a successful career in real estate. And so 15 years means there's a lot of experience that is going to be shared in this conversation. So if you are not new to Wealth Building Wednesday in 2022, listen, that rhymed, we have been exploring opportunities and information related to small businesses and entrepreneurship. This episode is just like that. And so we're focusing on real estate from the perspective of small businesses and the opportunities to invest in real estate. So if you are a small business owner, if you know a small business owner, which includes nonprofit organizations, click on this video and share it with them because we are getting ready to have an absolutely amazing conversation with Mrs. Felton. So we have lots to get to. Wanted to ask you first about small businesses and if there are situations when small business owners may want to consider leasing instead of purchasing a property. I know that we have definitely seen a lot of property acquisition over the last year or so with even with people suffering during the pandemic, there have been a lot of new businesses established, right? So when we're establishing a business and we're considering whether we want to position ourselves as a person who is entering into a lease agreement or a purchase, are there situations where leasing just makes more sense?
Yes. Good morning again. Just think, as we had discussed a little earlier, if you're starting a brand new business and you don't know where you are going, it would be not advantageous for you to just buy, because do you know, would that business be successful? And then you're stuck with this building that you may not be able to move right away. Also, if you're buying the building, you have to have capital, you have to have money, you have to have something to put down. You just can't walk into a bank and say, hey, I just want to buy this and I'm a new business. And also, too, buying a business compared to buying a home, you may have a 30-year mortgage with a home, but you may only have 10 years to buy that building. And that may be a $200,000 building, 300,000, 80. You don't know, until you delve into it deeper. But with leasing, at least you can, say I can put a certain amount down. I can pay for it monthly. You can negotiate how long it's going to be. And if the business just isn't going to work, you can walk away a little bit better from leasing, in that amount of time. Now, God forbid if you got a long-term lease, which I sincerely would not suggest,
Okay.
because if you're starting a new business, you don't want to jump in all the way and not knowing where you're going to go. And so the lease, you have a chance to, you don't have to put as much capital into leasing as you would have to be into a building, because that building is going to be yours if you make it or if you break it. You're going to have to own that building. But at least with a lease, you can kind of say, okay, I'm going to try it, see how far I can go. But as discussed, what if you go into a building, you're going to have to totally renovate it. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to make changes to it. And then guess what? You can't, unless it's like operating, like restaurant tables or whatever, you can take that back with you. But
Right.
like I said, if you made beautiful lights or whatever, and you really changed it to where if you pull it, you're going to cause damage to the property. And of course, you cause damage to the property, that owner is going to make you pay for that. And then, of
Right.
course, if you want to get out the lease, you're breaking a lease. And if you've only been in there 3.5 years, you may have to pay that last year and a half if you're in there or not. But
Wow.
yeah, so you have so much to consider. I always tell people, take a notebook and you write the good and the bad, the pros and the cons. How would this be beneficial to me? And then also too, you can't walk in there and thinking you have, if you don't have any money, meaning you have expenses even with your employees and everything. Always remember, with business, you're always the last one to get paid. And so,
Mhm.
and guess what? If you get paid at all.
Right.
So, but guess what? That gas bill has to be paid, light bill has to be paid, water bill has to be paid. The people working there have to be paid. And then do you have enough capital set aside for that rainy days? And I'm gonna tell you, COVID has destroyed a lot of businesses to non-existent. They're not even in business. So guess what? You may still have a lease to pay, or a commercial mortgage to pay, and now
Wow.
you're no longer in business. What do you do? And those SBA loans only helped, but so much. They do not help with renovations and things like that. Now, SBA loans will help you to buy, but it's very limited on what you can do. And they usually like established businesses as well. So you got to do your pros and cons. At least with leasing, you don't have to put up as much money
Hmm.
as well if you do to buy. But also, if you do renovations to a leased property, that now belongs to the owner of that building.
Lots of things to think about. But as you said, if you're a brand new business, to maybe try to know how well you're going to do, like give
Yes.
yourself a couple of years before
Yes.
investing in real estate. But yeah, that's the ideal situation. But to each his own. Do your
Right.
list. Follow Mrs. Felton's advice. Do your list, your pros and your cons, to figure out which approach is going to be best, because you don't want to create a situation, oh my goodness, where you're in this long-term lease. And that's a term that you use. So for some folks, how do we gauge whether it's a long-term or a short-term lease when it comes to commercial leasing?
Well, that's going to be up to the owner, because
Okay.
like look at the former Winn Dixie that
Hmm.
was on Highland. They were, I think, 20 plus years. And when it
Right.
came when it came time, they said, hey, we can build. And when I think when Dixie and the owner could not come to the meeting of the mind, when Dixie says, we got this, and they built. And
Mm.
sometimes you can be penny wise and pound foolish, meaning I would rather have a little something than all of nothing. So if someone told me they can't increase the money or whatever, but they could still stay or where they're at, I'd rather kind of suck it up and take that than you leave. And now I'm getting
Nothing.
absolutely nothing. And that's what happens with a lot of business owners. They may think, hey, I can wait for the next person. But when you have a 15,000 square foot building, not everybody can jump in there and rent from there, because I can't even imagine what that rent is,
Right.
and how much to go in it. So, and then also, like I said again, you're looking at long term and short term, and how are you going to do? How, what kind of business are you choosing? Is that business conducive? You know, you may be a good cook, and honey, everybody loves your cooking, but now you've opened it, and is anyone going to support you?
Right.
And so you have to be, and you know, and location, it is true. Where are you
Yes.
putting this business? You
Right.
know, and then I have seen businesses that have been in the worst locations, but they thrive because of notoriety and
Hmm.
reputation, and
Yes.
people will be willing to go anywhere to that business. But if you're new to the business, I mean new to the area, or new, just establishing your business, and you're looking for the most affordable, and I understand that, I respect it, but then you choose a location where no one's going to come, there's no parking,
Yeah.
you know, and you lose, and then you're out, and then there's almost no second chance, because once you try and no one comes, what makes you think there'll come a second chance, you know, second try? So you really have to, it's more than just saying I'm gonna buy a building. What is this building going to make, and how
Right.
am I going to make it? And sometimes, like I said, you want to put that toe in the water before you jump in, because it may be all ice.
Absolutely. So now, what are some basic things that a small business owner will need to have if their goal is to purchase real estate?
Purchasing, or even leasing, I would even suggest, just for anybody in business,
Hmm.
you got, of course, one of the crucial things is a lender. Who is your lender going to be? And not all mortgage companies and banks want to delve in commercial. Not all of
Hmm.
them. I'm dealing, I is something as a blessing that I have dealt with everything almost you're asking, like nonprofit, businesses. I'm even dealing with somebody that wants to buy multiple houses on one pot land, and I just knew this one lender would help, and she says no, we don't deal with that, and she gave me other lenders that possibly can help. You don't have to always go with your lender that you work with at your bank. If they're not giving you what you need, and they're not saying the numbers you want to hear, you can go elsewhere. Honey, I tell anyone, a bank wants you. Their objective is to get your business. But if they're not swooning you and sweet talking you like you want to hear it, go to the next one. So a good lender, and someone, and you want to stay, I would almost suggest, almost stay with, I mean, have multiple, like let's say you get your foot in the door with certain banks, but if you have
Hmm.
one good lender that knows you and knows you're good for it, every time you approach them, maybe with another business, they'll be more than likely help you than someone that doesn't know you, even if you're established, that's
Okay.
small or large. Then the next thing you got to have is a good CPA.
Okay.
You got to, because they're going to help you and tell you what moves to make based on your finances. So if you don't have a CPA, you're kind of going out there blind and thinking, you know, as they say, we don't know it all. So having a good lender, CPA, and honestly, you need an attorney, a good
Mhm.
attorney. And I always tell people, all attorneys not created equal, like all doctors aren't created equal. Like you're not going to go for a broken foot to a cardiologist. So you may have corporate lawyers, divorce lawyers, there are all kind of lawyers. Make sure this is a lawyer that understands business and how to make sure, like, you know, for LLCs, corporations, whatever, how to make
Mhm.
sure your money is right. So you have to find a lawyer that is going to be specific for you in business, not just your best friend that you grew up in high school and now they have a law office and you're going to go in that route. And then the person that's going to help you buy, your
Yeah.
broker, your agent, that person, you have to sit down and talk, tell them what you need, tell them, you know, what is your interest. And honestly, now we're in a small community of Selma,
Mhm.
but you have bigger communities that's all they do is commercial properties. Someone only does land, somebody only deals with buyers, someone only deals with sellers. But in Selma, with threshold. Anything that comes across that door, we got to take. We're not in that position for me just to say, oh, I just work with selling houses and that's all I work with sellers. I just work with buyers. I just work with commercial. Now, the bigger land brokers or agents, you
Hmm.
have some people that just work strictly in this area. They don't touch buildings, houses, or commercial. They do work with land and land
Okay.
only. But some of us do work all of it, and some of us can push that expertise on commercial. But you make sure you have a good game plan. You talk with your broker. Like I said, if it's a restaurant, you got to make sure, hey, we got to talk about a restaurant. But if it's clothing, we got to make sure we situate you for clothing. All businesses may not fit in a place, and that's why communication is key.
Listen, and throughout the responses that you've given, I keep hearing this recurring theme of do your research,
Yes,
right? So
right.
that when you're identifying the lender, the CPA, the attorney, even the broker or
Yes,
realtor that you're working with, that you know what you want, right?
right.
Because when I tell you that there are attempts for people to start businesses and you may want to say open a bar, but if it's within, depending on what the ordinances are in your township or your city, then you won't be able to, like, if there's a church, I know in Selma, I think is within 100 feet or like
Yes,
close by, you can't get a liquor license. So you can't, investing in a building that is on property that is too close to a religious institution would be, kind of self-defeating because you've paid money now for a building that you won't be able to use to bring your dream to fruition. So
right.
do your research, y'all.
Yeah, zoning is so important. Even dealing with private, someone just buying a home. I deal with a lot of people who want to buy a manufactured home or have it, and they'll say, "Help me." And I was like, "Okay." There are restrictions, covenants, and
Hmm.
everything. And that's the same thing with businesses. Just because you can buy it and just because it's yours, don't mean you can necessarily do what you want.
Right.
And zoning, like even me, I'll do my best. I have helped, when people said I want to buy this, but Helene, I want to make sure, what can I do? And you can call to your city, call
Hmm.
city hall and
Hmm.
say, what is the zoning for this area? And there's no, I don't care, like I tell people, just because you can, should you, meaning just because it's $10,000 for that land, you're thinking you're getting the deal of the century. Now you bought it, but then you bought it and you can't do anything with it.
Right.
You need to know everything, because sometimes they get that money, they get that desire, they run. I found the building, I found this, I'm ready to jump in it. Now you've done all that, but now you found out like you said, I've seen a business in this community where they bought it, they wanted to open a restaurant, they wanted to have cocktails, liquor,
Hmm.
whatever, and a church shut it down. And
Yep.
these people had started already the renovations. They even had the commercial equipment in there for the kitchen. I
Mm.
mean, I was devastated for them. But then they did not do their homework.
Yeah.
And then who sold them the building? Not necessarily. Now, I'm going to tell you, Alabama is a buyer beware state.
It
Um,
is.
Caveat emptor. We don't have to, the seller does not have to prove anything to you. I tell
Hmm.
buyers of anything, do your research again. Like as a realtor, honey, my goal is to make that property look good. I don't care if it's a pawn shop to the left. I don't care if it's cows to the right. I don't care if it's a dumpster to a big dump, site. That's not my problem. I'm supposed to make that building look good. And I
Right.
will angle, go around, do a Spider-Man, do a stretch Armstrong to my body and corners, and make that building look good. Now, I always tell people it's up to you to drive by. It's up to you
Hmm.
to go at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, go at 8 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. Because I always tell anyone, when I show a property, usually the sky's open, the cherubs are singing, and the heavenly choir is singing hallelujah. It's such a pretty day. But then we may leave, and I don't know what, I don't live in those areas and I don't work in those areas. So I do tell anybody I work with, Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, make sure it's conducive for you.
Yes.
but we live in a buyer. Florida is a seller beware state, but
Mhm.
Alabama is a buyer, and it's up to you to find out if a property or an area is good or bad for you.
So do your research. Mrs. Felton is recommending doing drive-bys all times of day and night. And I totally concur with that. Listen, whether it's for commercial or for if you're looking to buy a home for your family,
Right.
drive through that neighborhood at Friday, Friday 2 o'clock, or Saturday morning 2 o'clock to see what's going on in
Right.
that community. So now, what are some reasons, or are there any reasons that a small business owner, say I have a sole proprietorship,
Right.
and I'm looking to purchase real estate, is there a reason, or should I transition to something like an LLC or corporation or some sort of corporation?
Okay. If I may, I like to use my father as an example.
Okay.
My dad ran businesses here for, oh my God, from the 70s until he passed
Yeah.
in 2001. What he did was a sole proprietorship. And guess
Okay.
what? It worked for him.
Okay.
But in this day and age, would it work? And I want to say no. But of course, this is my opinion. Of course, anything I say, please research it and check. The reason is I have learned because, we do what our families did or what someone previously did, and we follow in their footsteps. And I'm no different. So, how my daddy ran business, I ran business like him.
Okay.
And I'm not saying he ran business wrong because he was very successful, but I should have made changes. And I finally did, but I should have did it a long time ago. And I learned that when I did apply for SBA loans, because
Okay.
all my businesses were falling under my social security number. And I have three
Wonderful.
businesses.
Yeah.
So my laundromat was under my social. My rental property was under my social. Even though I filed Schedule C's, did all my due diligence, I was correct
Mm-hmm.
even as a real estate agent. It was under my social. So when SBA was viewing me, everything kept popping up under my social and I kept hitting brick walls. They would only almost recognize only one business.
Mm.
And then I had to work so hard to prove I wasn't doing anything wrong. I actually had businesses, and I proved that by my tax filing.
Okay.
So now I have turned over all my businesses, including myself as a realtor, to LLCs. And
Okay.
how that helps is, let's say if you made $100,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
and you profited, you paid all everything you pay, and you still maybe are worth 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be taxed on that 60. So let's say if you LLC that 100, that you everything flows through that, and you show you only make 30,000,
Mm-hmm.
you're only going to be taxed on that 30,000, and they're
Mm.
not going to double tax you. So the LLC is paying me.
Okay.
My LLCs pay me. And so I can leave all the rest of the money sitting there, and let it work for the businesses instead of me saying, because in essence, I'm not really making 100,000. I'm not really, but boy, they'll tax that money to death.
Mm-hmm.
But once you kind of LLC it, and also too, you're taking a lot of liability off you. So let's say, God forbid, Lydia, you have a business, you open it, and someone gets hurt. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
sue Lydia.
Mm-hmm.
But if Lydia LLCs and that business is ran through the LLC, they sue
Right.
the business.
Right.
So you're trying to take as much off of you as you can. But of course, it's yours. And of course, if you have others within that LLC, you have to work together and meeting of the minds. But I was a sole proprietor, and now I am an LLC, and all my businesses are LLC. But don't think that just because you're an LLC that you automatically, boom, I can start buying stuff and that now I
Okay.
got this LLC, I'm ready to go. No, no, no. That LLC has to have, like, you have a Duns and Bradstreet
Yes.
number.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna laugh. I didn't know my laundromat had one forever, but no, this is even funnier. It was in my mama's name.
Oh wow.
It was the Brad. My mama, Rosa E. Towns, had a Brad. Just
All right.
it
Look.
was funny. And I was like, my mama didn't even know she all that. And then, but what I had to do, I had to go to Dunn's. I had to prove my LLC. I had to go back to
Yes.
2005 and prove that I was the true, even though my mother and I co-owned it, but I was the true one running it. I had to go
Yes.
back to 2005, and thank goodness I keep good records. I pulled up everything, and Dunn changed it from Rosa E. Towns to 80 East Washer.
Okay.
And also your LLC has to have a good how can I say it,
Credit
score.
standing.
Yes, it
Uh-huh.
has to. And so don't, like I said again, don't think you're going to, well, I got this LLC, I want to buy this $200,000 building. No, that business has to build like you have to build. But now, honestly, they will work with you as well as the business. And I'll be honest, since my laundromat has been really in business since 1987,
Hmm.
but it has established so well, I can get loans with that laundromat. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's harder to get loans with rental properties. It's
Mm.
almost like it's a business, but not a business, believe it or not. It's like, yes, you're making money, you're making income. Yes, you're paying money and taxes, but
Hmm.
you can't. You can't. So it's harder.
Wow.
It's harder. So an
So now that
LLC is good.
so that definitely speaks to the impact that purchasing real estate can have on a small business. But now, what about, because and you just said a dirty word, a three-letter word, taxing. Look,
Yes, I know.
look. So,
Sorry.
what would the tax liability be for, say, like a for-profit business that purchases a building versus like a nonprofit? Do
You're still
nonprofits pay?
responsible. You're still
Okay,
responsible.
okay,
A nonprofit, it's you do have exemptions. You have a
okay,
lot of exemptions as a nonprofit. But if it's for profit, you still have to pay taxes on that building. You still have to pay, anything. I mean, it runs through your LLC is paying it, not Helene's paying those property
okay,
tax. Like now that I run everything through my LLC, 80 East Washer pays for the taxes. 80 East Washer pays for all liabilities. 80 East Washer pays for the insurance. 80 East Washer, but 80 East Washer pays Helene.
okay,
So Helene is no longer paying all that stuff for 80 East Washer. 80 East Washer is responsible for its own taxes, its own liabilities, but it pays Helene. Now Helene pays from that, but
okay.
I'm not responsible. I let all my LLCs pay for what they need to pay for, but nonprofits, they are exempt from so many things. But be careful, you have to keep good records. Because when
Keep
you
good
start,
records
you got
and do
to,
your research.
you got to, because
Yeah.
just think you're saying I'm a nonprofit, but you got all this stuff. They're going to wonder, how are you a nonprofit, but you
Right.
got that Lamborghini outside?
Hello. Look.
You got a whole bunch of things. How are you a nonprofit? What is your nonprofit doing? Like you're doing things for people, and you can
Yeah.
show it, you can prove it. When I did, I'll admit I got a loan SBA for my laundromat. If they
Hmm.
showed up today, I can take them and show them everything in that laundromat: plumbing, electric, machines. You better back your words up, because taking money and not showing what you're doing with it, and then you're saying you're a nonprofit, then where's the money going? What are you putting the money toward? And that's the same thing with the building. That building has to be used for what you're saying it's going to be used for. Not, and if you are making money, then you still got to show, is that money going back to what you're doing for that nonprofit? Not
Okay.
that, well, I got extra space and let me go ahead and open up a such and such a thing and blah blah blah. No, you bought that building solely for that nonprofit. You can't now go open up a laundromat on the side and say whatever. No, but then if you are opening up, you better be letting people wash for free, because that's part of your
Okay.
nonprofit. You're helping the homeless or
Right.
whatever. You cannot be lining your pockets just because you're saying it's a nonprofit.
Listen here, do your research, because the IRS and all of these agencies that we can use to apply for, they will do theirs. Even if we don't do ours, they will do theirs.
They
So
will check. They're
I
like
am,
Santa Claus. They check their list.
yes.
Being naughty and nice and checking it twice. So yes,
Yes.
you better stay on it, because it's so people want to jump into nonprofits so quickly because
Hmm.
they're thinking, I got this.
Hmm.
But do you really have this?
Yeah. Well, I am super excited. I know we did not get to all the questions, but we have had 30 minutes of amazing conversation. And that just
Thank you.
simply means that you are going to have to come back and see us on
I don't
Wealth
mind.
Building Wednesday. Yes, you have been tuned in and watching Wealth Building Wednesday, and this is so exciting because I am proud to welcome Mrs. Helene Felton to
Thank you.
the Wealth Building Wednesday family. She's a realtor. Again, her commentary was not a reflection of her company, but of her 15 years of experience as a real estate agent and realtor in the Selma, Alabama community and surrounding areas.
Yeah.
She's not we are super excited to have her as a part of our family, and we definitely will be inviting her in quite often, actually, because real estate is actually one of those questions, one of those areas that folks constantly have questions about. So we are excited to have you be a part of the conversation. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you all for tuning in. And until next Wednesday, listen, it's a beautiful day outside. Get outside and start building that wealth, please.
Thank you.